I already know this week's video is gonna be divisive. What's up everybody, it's JJ Buckets and we are here to talk about the one player on the Toronto Raptors that it seems like a lot of Raptors fans have really turned their back on. It is Mr. Fred VanVleet. So before I fully hop into the video, usual drill folks, just make sure you leave me a like on the video. It helps the algorithm out a lot. I know I say that all the time, but it's because it really does. So leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Plus, if you plan on doing any responsible sports betting in the future, check out my link in the description below for a really great sign-up bonus. Besides for that, let's hop into things. I really do think it's no secret that a lot of Raptors fans have turned their backs on Fred VanVleet. You can surf all over social media, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I'm sure it's even on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok that much, to be honest with you, but like you can jump all over different social media sites and you will see a lot of Raptors fans just critiquing Fred VanVleet, and quite frankly it feels a little reminiscent of the Tampa season and Pascal Siakam. I think there's a lot of parallels there between the hate that Fred VanVleet is getting now from the fan base and the hate that Pascal Siakam was getting in the Tampa season from the fan base. It really does feel like everything that Fred VanVleet does is just being micro-analyzed on the court, right? Even you know, in games like yesterday's against the Bucks, where you could argue Fred had one of the better performances on the Raptors, a lot of people are still talking about, you know, like one or two really bad plays or something like that, you know, and just he's really getting the brunt of it. When it comes to this season and just the poor performance for the team, it looks like Fred VanVleet really is receiving a bulk of the blame from the fans. And why is that? You know, like, do I say it, or excuse me, do I think it's completely without credence? Like, no, I understand where some people might be a little upset, quite frankly, with the performances. I mean, look, Fred VanVleet hasn't been great this year. He hasn't been great at all. His field goal percentage is awful, right? Like, I think that's the big thing, that's no secret. But on top of the field goal percentage not being good, the three-point percentage is also down, which has been a strength of Fred VanVleet's game over the past few years, right? And speaking of things that have been strengths of Fred VanVleet's game, oh, excuse me, I'm tongue twisting myself for no reason. Speaking of things that have been strengths that are now seemingly liabilities, defensively, whereas Fred before was seen as an above average defender and a really aggressive kind of defender when it came to guarding guards, now his defense hasn't looked good. His defense has not been good this season. So a lot of fans, I think, are seeing this coupled with a few other things that I will get into later, and they have seemingly turned their back on Fred. They have been asking for Fred to get traded. They have been asking for Fred's minutes to go down, which is a whole other thing that I will also talk about. Like, Fred VanVleet has just not been the crowd favorite this year. Now, let's flip to the other side of things here. There's gonna be a couple talking points here that you can consider quote unquote in defense of Fred, which I understand will probably not be the most popular thing right now, but I'm gonna do it anyways. So, how much of the struggles here can be attributed to the fact that he has been playing a lion's share of minutes at that point guard position over the past two seasons, despite dealing with multiple injuries that, quite frankly, I do still think, even this season, are nagging him and are holding him back. Like, I think if you watch the game, some of the movements by Fred VanVleet just do not look, they don't look crisp. It doesn't look like he's a guy that's playing at 100%. And now I understand, players play through injuries all the time and everything, but like Fred VanVleet is playing what, close to like 37 minutes a night? It's a big line share to ask of a small player, and quite frankly not the most athletic player, you know, that just hasn't been given an opportunity to really recover from the injuries he had last year, the injuries he had at the beginning of this year, the multiple injuries he had. Like, he's dealt with a lot, and he has been playing heavy minutes because Nick Nurse has been playing him heavy minutes, and quite frankly, like, I think it would be, what's the word, insincere maybe, to not think that hasn't affected his play on the court. And like, yeah, don't get me wrong, there's still like plays here and again where he'll just put up a bad shot or whatever, but I think that is a bigger kind of issue on the Raptors and the Raptors offense rather than single-handedly on Fred's decision making. But yeah, just the lion's share of minutes that he's been getting, to go back to this point, I think really you look at just the lack of a reliable backup point guard on this team over the past few seasons, and because of that, Nick Nurse is, well, I mean, Nick Nurse is his own talking point for a different video, but because of just the seeming lack of reliable backup point guard, Fred has been played incredibly high when it comes to minutes. And again, this is all adding up to just some underwhelming performances on the court. Now, on top of that, like, I'm gonna address the elephant in the room. There's definitely been a lot of anti-Fred propaganda too over like recent weeks, months, however long it's been. I've really lost count here. And with that propaganda, like, listen, when a team struggles, right, which the Raptors, call a spade, the Raptors are struggling this season. The Raptors are bad this season. Well, bad might not be the word, but definitely underwhelming this season. Whenever a team gets to a state like that, you need a scapegoat, right? In a lot of cases, like, again, calling it what it is, fans, maybe not players, but fans, media, etc., are gonna look for a scapegoat as to the struggles. In Tampa, a lot of people picked Pascal as the scapegoat. Hell, some people even picked Aaron Baines as the scapegoat, which is really funny. This season, Fred is filling those shoes. Fred has been the scapegoat for the Raptors' troubles, even though I think it's clear that you can look at the Raptors and you can say, yeah, don't get me wrong, Fred VanVleet and his underwhelming performances are a part of the problem, but there's many more problems with the Raptors this season that you can talk about and you can have discourse about that aren't just exclusively rooted to Fred VanVleet. It's not like, you know, you ship Fred off tomorrow and the Raptors are suddenly a 50-win team and playing at like a 50-win pace or whatever you want to, you know, throw into that hypothetical. He's not the core and one and only issue. He's one of them. His performances haven't been great this year, so I'm not going to pretend like he's not one of the problems, but he's not the only problem, and I think that has kind of escaped some people here, right? Where does that leave things? Obviously, the situation with Fred VanVleet's contract is coming up. He's got a player option at the end of the season. We have no indicator of whether or not he's going to take that. On top of things, the trade deadline is going to be coming up soon, right? And the Raptors are currently sitting in 12th in the Eastern Conference, and quite frankly, not too far out from some really good lottery position. If the Raptors do decide that they're going to fold their cards for this season and build towards the future, that's probably a name near the top of the list that you're going to ship out, right? And try and get some young assets for. On the flip side of things, like, you could also see a route where the team comes to an agreement on a team-friendly contract. Maybe Fred takes that player option, stays on this team, has a really good season next year, something along those lines, and, you know, the Raptors figure out how to keep him on the team moving forward. There's also the possibility that Fred gets to the offseason, he doesn't take his player option, and he walks away from the Raptors. Maybe he walks away for nothing. Maybe they sign and trade him. There's a lot of situations that can quite frankly unfold here. So with that in mind, this is where I ask you people, what do you think? Drop it in the comment section. Let me know what you are anticipating or what you want to see in terms of how this situation unfolds. Besides for that, that's pretty much been me for the day. If you're still here, I will once again remind you to like the video. It really helps me out a ton. And if you're still watching, like, man, it takes like a second, just click that button. And if you're new here, again, subscribe to the channel. I'm usually good for at least one video a day, and I'll save you the usual spiel of try one video a day. Jesus Christ. No, definitely not that. One video a week, and I'll save you the usual spiel of, you know, talking about increasing that count. You know I'm going to increase it eventually. Yeah, other than that, it's been JJ Buckets. It has been real, and I will see everybody next time.